Behind the glamour of old Hollywood was a hotbed of scandal. Think love triangles, blackmail, and rumors so wild they'd make Twitter explode today. The Clark Gable and Loretta Young love child scandal. One of the most whispered about was the rumor that Clark Gable fathered a secret child with Loretta Young. The year was 1935, and the two were co-stars in The Call of the Wild. Off camera, it was said sparks flew. Gable, married to socialite Rhea Langham, had a reputation for on-set flings. Loretta Young, on the other hand, was known for her strict Catholic faith and carefully curated image of innocence. After filming Wrapped, Young disappeared from the spotlight. Months later, she returned, announcing she had adopted a baby girl named Judy. Her story was that Judy was an orphan who needed a home, but Judy's striking resemblance to Gable, right down to his distinctive ears, made the cover story hard to believe. Whispers of an affair and a secret pregnancy circulated immediately. Both stars stayed quiet. Gable, often referred to as the King of Hollywood, never publicly addressed the rumors. Young stuck to her adoption claim, protecting her career and reputation. Insiders, however, hinted that Gable made secret visits to Judy, further fueling the speculation. MGM reportedly stepped in to bury the story, fearful of how it might damage its stars. For nearly 6 decades, the truth remained hidden. It wasn't until 1994 that Young, in a rare interview, confirmed what many had long suspected. Judy was her biological daughter, the result of what she described as a non-consensual encounter with Gable during the filming of The Call of the Wild. This shocking revelation cast the scandal in a far darker light, reframing what had been romanticized as an affair into a story of exploitation. The confession added complexity to both Gable and Young's public personas. For Judy, it ended a lifetime of rumors, but also exposed the darker side of old Hollywood. Joan Crawford's alleged blue movies. Her career was the definition of Hollywood success, but behind her polished image, whispers of a scandal threatened to tarnish her legacy. By the 1930s, Crawford was one of MGM's brightest stars. However, rumors suggested her rise to fame had a darker backstory. The claims that before her Hollywood breakthrough, she'd appeared in adult films to make ends meet. These films, often called stag films, were part of an underground scene in the 1920s. Crawford, known then as Lucille LeSueur, was said to have participated in these productions during her early days as a struggling dancer. Fans found her swift transformation into a Hollywood star suspicious, speculating that someone powerful had helped her bury her past. Eddie Mannix, MGM's infamous fixer, was often linked to these rumors. Mannix was the studio's go-to guy for cleaning up messes and protecting its stars. Allegedly, he stepped in to handle the Crawford situation, tracking down and destroying any negatives of the supposed films. MGM was known for its obsession with controlling the public image of its stars, so the idea isn't far-fetched. Still, no concrete proof of Mannix's involvement, or the films themselves, has ever surfaced. Crawford, for her part, denied the allegations her entire life. She called the rumors malicious lies meant to drag her down. Decades later, her adopted daughter Christina reignited public interest in Crawford's private life with her controversial book Mommy Dearest. While the memoir didn't address the adult film rumors directly, its shocking portrayal of Crawford added fuel to the fire about her hidden past. Despite the intrigue, no evidence has ever confirmed the existence of these alleged films. Were they a smear tactic against a powerful woman in Hollywood, or was there some truth to the whispers? We may never know. But the rumors have ensured that Crawford's name remains as infamous as it is iconic, proving that Hollywood's obsession with scandal knows no bounds. Errol Flynn's espionage allegations. He was the ultimate Hollywood swashbuckler, famous for his charisma and swordplay. But during World War II, a darker story started to circulate. Flynn, the man behind Robin Hood's smile, was rumored to be a Nazi spy. As wild as it sounded, the FBI took these whispers seriously and kept an active file on him. The allegations weren't baseless. Flynn had a close friendship with Hermann Urban, an Austrian doctor with confirmed Nazi ties. The two shared a love of travel, but Urban's documented connections to German intelligence raised alarms. Flynn's frequent trips to Europe during the war didn't help his case. Add to that his Austrian roots and his perceived indifference to the Allied cause, and the rumors began to stick. The conspiracy gained momentum in 1980, thanks to Charles Hyam's book Errol Flynn, The Untold Story. Hyam painted Flynn as a double agent, claiming the actor passed information to the Nazis while maintaining his Hollywood image. The book alleged Flynn's charm and international lifestyle made him the perfect spy. It also accused Flynn of using his Hollywood clout to help Urban and other Nazi sympathizers. But Hyam's claims were heavily criticized. Historians and Flynn supporters argued the evidence was flimsy and speculative. The FBI's files, while extensive, lacked any smoking gun. Flynn's defenders labeled Hyam's book a hit piece, accusing the author of exaggerating for shock value. Many believe the rumors were fueled by Flynn's reckless lifestyle rather than actual treachery. Despite the pushback, the damage was done. The mere suggestion of espionage left a stain on Flynn's legacy. Even today, the idea of Hollywood's most dashing hero harboring Nazi sympathies remains a tantalizing what if. So what's the truth? Was Flynn just an adventure junkie with bad judgment in friends, or did his charm mask something far more sinister? The lack of definitive evidence keeps the mystery alive, leaving fans and critics to debate whether Flynn's greatest act was on-screen or off. Marilyn Monroe's mysterious diaries. Her death in 1962 left behind more questions than answers. One of the most persistent rumors revolves around her alleged secret diaries. These journals supposedly contained shocking details about her relationships with John F. Kennedy and his brother Robert. For decades, these rumored diaries have fueled conspiracy theories and added to the intrigue surrounding Monroe's life and death. Monroe was known for keeping journals. She used them to write poetry, reflect on her life, and document personal experiences. Biographer Anthony Summers, in his book Goddess: The Secret Lives of Marilyn Monroe, suggested she recorded sensitive details from conversations with the Kennedys. Allegedly, some entries included political secrets and information that could have made her a liability. The circumstances of Monroe's death have only added to the speculation. Found lifeless in her Brentwood home, she was officially ruled a victim of a barbiturate overdose. However, the involvement of the FBI and LAPD in the investigation raised eyebrows. Rumors claim Monroe's house was searched extensively, and anything incriminating, like the alleged diaries, was quietly removed. Some close to Monroe, including her friends, insisted they had seen her write about her encounters with powerful men, adding fuel to the fire. Despite decades of speculation, no one has ever found these diaries. Some believe they were destroyed to protect the reputations of high-profile figures. Others argue the diaries never existed, suggesting they were invented by the media to sensationalize her tragic story. The lack of evidence hasn't stopped books, documentaries, and theorists from speculating about what they might have contained. Charles Chaplin's paternity battle. Charles Chaplin may have revolutionized film, but his personal life was often front-page news. By the 1940s, Chaplin was already a magnet for controversy, and the 1943 paternity suit filed by Joan Barry added fuel to the fire. Barry, a 22-year-old aspiring actress, claimed Chaplin was the father of her daughter, Carol Ann. The case quickly became a media frenzy, overshadowing Chaplin's cinematic brilliance. Barry's relationship with Chaplin had ended before her pregnancy, and he firmly denied fathering her child. He pointed to Barry's erratic behavior, stalking him, breaking into his home, as evidence of her instability. Still, her claims gained momentum, and the case went to court. In a bid to prove his innocence, Chaplin agreed to a blood test. At the time, this was cutting-edge science. The results were clear. Chaplin was not the biological father, but there was a catch. Under California law, blood tests were inadmissible in paternity cases. The jury ruled against Chaplin, ordering him to pay child support. The verdict caused public outrage, with many questioning the fairness of the decision. The scandal didn't stop in the courtroom. It gave Chaplin's enemies, including FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover, exactly what they needed to intensify their attacks. Hoover, who was already suspicious of Chaplin's political leanings, used the trial to paint him as both immoral and un-American. The FBI's campaign against Chaplin wasn't subtle. It added pressure to an already tense situation, leading to his forced departure from the U.S. in 1952. He relocated to Switzerland, where he spent the rest of his life. Despite the controversy, Chaplin continued making groundbreaking films, though the paternity case cast a long shadow over his later years. Judy Garland's alleged drug coercion. Judy's talent lit up the screen, but her life behind the scenes told a darker story. Her career, especially during her teenage years, has been heavily scrutinized for the alleged exploitation she endured under MGM's iron grip. Many believe the studio orchestrated her dependency on drugs to keep her working at an unrelenting pace. Garland was just 13 when she signed with MGM. While her voice was unmatched, executives cruelly criticized her appearance, labeling her the Little Hunchback. To fit Hollywood's rigid standards, she was subjected to harsh dietary controls. Reports suggest her meals consisted of black coffee, chicken soup, and diet pills, all closely monitored by studio staff. The most shocking claims involve amphetamines, pep pills, allegedly given to Garland to keep her energized for marathon filming schedules. During The Wizard of Oz, she was said to work up to 18-hour days, running on little more than these stimulants. To help her sleep, barbiturates were reportedly prescribed, creating a dangerous cycle of dependency. By adulthood, Garland's struggles with addiction were undeniable. Her personal life and career began to show the strain. She often spoke candidly about her experience with the studio system, saying, "They had us working days and nights on end. They'd give us pills to keep us on our feet long after we were exhausted, then knock us out with sleeping pills when the work was done." Her battles didn't stop there. She faced public breakdowns, hospitalizations, and strained relationships. Despite these challenges, her raw talent and resilience kept her fighting for her place in Hollywood. Garland's tragic death in 1969, at just 47 years old, was attributed to an overdose. It was a heartbreaking end for a star who had given so much to the industry but received so little care in return. Her story remains a grim reminder of how old Hollywood often treated its stars as commodities rather than people, prioritizing profit over well-being. Judy Garland will always be remembered for her brilliance, but her struggles highlight the darker side of fame in the industry's golden era. The murder mystery of Thelma Todd. Her death in December 1935 stunned Hollywood. Known as the Ice Cream Blonde, she was beloved for her comedic timing and glamorous looks. At 29, Todd was a star on the rise, transitioning from silent films to talkies with ease. She also ran Thelma Todd's Sidewalk Cafe, a hotspot for celebrities along the Pacific Coast Highway. But her success was overshadowed by her mysterious death, which has remained unsolved. Todd's body was found slumped in her car inside the garage of her lover and business partner, Roland West. The garage, located above her cafe, became the center of intense speculation. The coroner ruled her death accidental, caused by carbon monoxide poisoning from her car's running engine. Still, the details surrounding her death didn't add up, sparking rumors that refused to die. Weeks before her death, Todd allegedly received threats from mobsters demanding money from her cafe. Organized crime figures saw her business as prime real estate for their operations. Her refusal to comply may have put her in danger. Adding fuel to the fire, Todd was seen arguing at a party the night before with her ex-husband, Pat DeSico, who had known mob connections. Then there was Roland West. West's controlling behavior and rocky relationship with Todd made him another prime suspect in the public's eyes. Some believed West locked her in the garage after an argument, not realizing the car was still running. West's shifting accounts of that night only deepened the suspicion. The coroner's report didn't help matters. It mentioned minor bruises on Todd's face and body, leading to speculation about a possible struggle. Yet there were no clear signs of foul play, leaving investigators without solid evidence. Despite the public outcry, the case was closed as an accidental death. Thelma Todd's story is still a favorite among true crime buffs. Was it a tragic accident? A mob hit? A lover's quarrel gone horribly wrong? The truth remains elusive, ensuring her death remains one of Hollywood's most talked about mysteries. Rock Hudson's hidden truth. He had it all: looks, charm, and a career most actors could only dream of. He became Hollywood's go-to leading man in the 1950s, starring in romantic hits that solidified his image as the ultimate symbol of masculinity. Fans loved him, studios relied on him, and his name alone could sell out theaters. But behind the perfectly polished exterior was a secret that Hollywood worked overtime to keep hidden. Rumors about Hudson's sexuality began circulating early in his career. Back then, even a hint of being gay could end a star's career. Hudson's agent, Henry Wilson, was infamous for covering up scandals and managing his clients' images with ruthless efficiency. When whispers about Hudson started growing louder, Wilson orchestrated a hasty solution: a marriage. In 1955, Hudson married Phyllis Gates, Wilson's secretary. The timing wasn't subtle. It came right after a tabloid threatened to publish a story about Hudson's personal life. Gates later claimed she didn't know Hudson was gay when they married, but skeptics have doubted her version of events. The marriage lasted 3 years, but by then it had served its purpose, silencing the rumors. Behind closed doors, Hudson lived a carefully compartmentalized life. Close friends and co-stars knew the truth, but loyalty and fear of the industry's backlash kept them quiet. Studio executives wielded immense power and had no problem squashing tabloid stories that could tarnish their golden boy. Everything changed in 1985 when Hudson announced he had immune deficiency syndrome. He was the first major celebrity to publicly disclose the diagnosis, a move that shocked fans and confirmed the rumors. The revelation came at a time when advanced HIV disease was deeply stigmatized, and Hudson's bravery helped bring global attention to the crisis. His death later that year was mourned worldwide and exposed the hypocrisy of an industry that demanded perfection at any cost. Lana Turner and the Johnny Stompanato murder. Lana Turner's relationship with Johnny Stompanato had everything tabloids could dream of: a Hollywood icon, a mobster boyfriend, and an explosive ending. Stompanato, a known associate of crime boss Mickey Cohen, wasn't just bad news. He was dangerous. Despite his charm, his violent streak quickly turned their romance into a toxic mess of arguments and reconciliations. By 1958, the relationship had reached its breaking point. On April 4th, an argument in Turner's Beverly Hills home escalated to violence. Turner later testified that Stompanato threatened her, causing her 14-year-old daughter, Cheryl Crane, to step in. Grabbing a kitchen knife, Cheryl stabbed him in the abdomen. He died almost instantly. The fallout was chaotic. The media swarmed Turner's home, turning the incident into a nationwide scandal. Headlines screamed speculation about what really happened that night. At the coroner's inquest, Cheryl claimed she acted in self-defense to protect her mother. Turner backed her up, tearfully recounting the abuse she'd endured. The jury ruled it justifiable homicide, but whispers of a different story refused to die. Some questioned whether Cheryl, a teenager with no history of violence, could deliver such a precise fatal wound. Others believed Turner herself had wielded the knife and that Cheryl took the blame to save her mother's career. Stompanato's mob connections added another layer of intrigue. There were rumors that his death wasn't an accident at all. Some suggested Mickey Cohen had orchestrated the killing either to eliminate liability or settle a personal grudge. Cohen, of course, denied any involvement. Despite the jury's decision, the scandal haunted Turner. While she continued acting, her glamorous image was forever tied to the tragedy. Cheryl, too, struggled with the weight of public scrutiny. The case remains one of old Hollywood's most infamous stories, blending celebrity drama with true crime. Whether it was a desperate act of protection or a cover-up, the Stompanato murder still fuels endless speculation. Decades later, it's clear this was no ordinary Hollywood breakup. It was a headline-grabbing scandal that left scars on everyone involved. the Black Dahlia and Hollywood. The murder of Elizabeth Short, better known as the Black Dahlia, remains one of Hollywood's darkest mysteries. In January 1947, her mutilated body was found in a vacant Los Angeles lot. The crime was horrifying and left posed in a gruesome manner. The case immediately grabbed headlines, with every sordid detail plastered across newspapers. Short, just 22 years old, had come to LA chasing dreams of becoming an actress. Like many others, she struggled to find work, often relying on friends or admirers for support. When her murder hit the news, her personal life became fodder for speculation. Reporters and the public alike were eager to link her to Hollywood's elite. Rumors swirled that she had attended exclusive parties thrown by powerful industry figures. Some even suggested she had rejected the wrong man's advances, which led to her untimely death. One theory that refuses to die is the involvement of Dr. George Hodel, a prominent and wealthy physician. Hodel was known for hosting extravagant gatherings attended by artists, intellectuals, and Hollywood insiders. Decades later, his own son, Steve Hodel, a former LAPD detective, accused him of being the killer. Steve presented evidence, including old photos of a woman resembling Short and his father's medical expertise, which matched the surgical precision of the crime. The accusations against George Hodel didn't come out of nowhere. During the 1940s, he was investigated for other crimes, including the suspicious death of his secretary. Although Hodel was never charged in the Black Dahlia case, his connection to it has fueled endless speculation. Elizabeth Short's murder remains unsolved, but her name is forever tied to the shadowy side of Hollywood. Whether she was targeted for her ambitions, a chance encounter, or something more sinister, the crime highlighted the dangers lurking in the industry. Some of the old-time Hollywood celebrities were into stuff you wouldn't believe, from having weird obsessions with scat
It is Austin.
to something as bizarre as an irrational fear for the color purple. There is no denying the fact that most of what you're about to be exposed to make absolutely no sense. Charles Laughton's weird diet. In his memoir, Full Service, My Adventures in Hollywood and the Sex Lives of the Stars, Scotty Bowers claims to have either slept with or arranged sexual liaisons for hundreds of the best-known celebrities during Hollywood's golden age. One of the most shocking stories involves British actor Charles Laughton. But that's not all. According to Bowers, Laughton once asked him to bring over a young male guest while his wife was out. When Bowers and the young man arrived, Laughton began making a sandwich. He carefully sliced up lettuce and tomatoes, arranged them on sourdough bread, added a bit of lemon juice, and sprinkled some salt and pepper. This is where it gets interesting. After a few minutes of prep work, Laughton took the bread slices in one hand, picked up a pot with the other, and asked the young man to follow him into the bathroom. But what happened next will shock you. Here's what Bowers describes. Charles was the first to return. He put the plate with the bread slices on the kitchen table. I could see that the lettuce and tomatoes had been lightly smeared with a light brown substance. Seconds later, Ted appeared in the kitchen. His erection was gone, and he was looking decidedly sheepish, perhaps even a trifle embarrassed. I stared at him curiously, and he pulled a face, hoping that Charles wouldn't notice. He pointed at the bread slices on the plate and then lightly patted his backside. And then, believe it or not, Laughton ate the sandwich. Ronald Reagan's obsession with young virgins. Ronald Reagan is often remembered more for his political career than his time in Hollywood, but back in the 1940s and 50s he was one of Tinseltown's leading men. But that's not all. One of the most cringe-inducing rumors about Reagan's Hollywood days comes from his co-star in the 1950 drama Louisa, Piper Laurie. She claims that the future GOP icon took her virginity when he was 39 years old, and she was just 18. But what happened next will shock you. In her memoir, Laurie writes that Reagan first seduced her on the set of their film Louisa, where he played her father. At first, Reagan seemed like a true gentleman. He even asked Laurie's mother for permission to take her on a date. Sounds charming, right? But instead of the glamorous evening Laurie had imagined, Reagan took both her and her mother to his house, where he cooked hamburger steak and salad. This is where it gets interesting. After dinner, things took a strange turn. Reagan led Laurie back to the bedroom. According to her, the actor was an insensitive show-off in bed. He bragged about how long he'd been erect, 40 whole minutes, and how much his condom had cost. But that's not all. Laurie also recounts that Reagan was far from a considerate lover. Not only did he fail to pleasure her, but when she mentioned her lack of an orgasm, his response was harsh and critical. According to her, he said, "There's something wrong with you that you should fix." Howard Hughes's extreme obsession with hygiene. Howard Hughes, the brilliant yet enigmatic tycoon, had a mind that worked in extraordinary ways. His achievements in aviation, film, and business were nothing short of legendary. But alongside his brilliance, there was a peculiar and relentless obsession that dominated his life: cleanliness. Imagine a man so consumed by the fear of germs that he would lock himself away in dark rooms for days, sometimes even weeks. Hughes turned his lavish homes into fortresses of solitude, meticulously sealed to keep out any potential contamination. The windows were often covered, creating a gloomy, almost eerie atmosphere, as if he were living in a perpetual twilight. Hughes's hand-washing routine was nothing short of ritualistic. Picture this. He would wash his hands repeatedly, scrubbing them until they were raw and sometimes even bleeding. It wasn't just a quick rinse. It was a painstaking process, as if he were trying to scrub away invisible threats. His fear of germs was so intense that he believed even the slightest contact could lead to illness or infection. But Hughes's obsession didn't stop at hand-washing. He went to extraordinary lengths to avoid human contact altogether. For instance, if he had to meet someone, he would often communicate through notes or intercom systems, avoiding face-to-face interactions. He would use tissues to touch objects and had a meticulous system for handling everyday items to ensure they remained uncontaminated. Hughes's peculiarities extended to his instructions to staff and associates. He once demanded that all canned food be meticulously washed and scrubbed before opening. Imagine the bewilderment of his staff as they followed these bizarre instructions, knowing that any deviation could trigger one of Hughes's infamous outbursts. Even when he was flying, Hughes couldn't escape his fears. His custom-built planes were designed with his germophobia in mind. He often flew alone or with minimal crew, ensuring that the aircraft remained as sterile as possible. The irony of an aviation pioneer afraid of the very air he conquered is striking, isn't it? Hughes's obsession with cleanliness and germs was a constant battle in his mind. Despite his towering intellect and achievements, he was trapped by his own fears. This relentless battle between his rational, inventive side and his irrational, obsessive side created a fascinating yet tragic figure. The man who soared to great heights in both the literal and metaphorical sense was, in many ways, grounded by his own mind. Mae West's astrology obsession. Mae West, a name synonymous with boldness and wit, was a star who dazzled both on and off the screen. But behind her larger-than-life persona and sultry quips lay a fascination that guided many of her choices: astrology. Mae West was deeply obsessed with astrology. This wasn't just a casual interest or a passing fancy, it was a central pillar of her decision-making process. Imagine a woman who, despite her confidence and unshakable self-assuredness, would not make any major life decisions without first consulting her astrologer. Whether it was a career move, a personal relationship, or even the timing of her day-to-day activities, the stars had to align for Mae. Her belief in astrology was so profound that it influenced her creative work. She wrote a play called The Constant Sinner, which was steeped in astrological themes. The narrative wasn't just a backdrop for her characters. It was interwoven with the celestial movements and zodiac signs that Mae believed so deeply in. This wasn't just art imitating life. It was life, love, and destiny dictated by the cosmos. Think about the confidence and assertiveness Mae West exuded in every role she played and every public appearance she made. Now imagine that same woman, with all her bravado, quietly consulting her astrologer in private, seeking guidance from the alignment of planets and stars. It's a striking contrast, isn't it? The idea that such a powerful figure would defer to celestial charts and predictions adds a fascinating layer to her already complex persona. Astrology wasn't just a hobby for Mae West, it was a way of life. She saw the patterns and signs as a roadmap, helping her navigate the tumultuous landscape of Hollywood and her personal life. This deep-rooted belief in the stars provided her with a sense of control and direction, a way to make sense of the often unpredictable nature of fame and fortune. Marlene Dietrich and collecting men's clothes. Beyond her screen persona, Marlene had an intriguing obsession that set her apart from her contemporaries, a fascination with men's clothing. This wasn't just a passing fancy or a quirky interest. It was a profound passion that influenced both her personal life and her public image. Dietrich didn't merely collect men's clothing, she wore it with a sense of ease and confidence that challenged the norms of her time. In an era when women were expected to adhere to strict fashion conventions, Dietrich's choice to don suits, trousers, and tailored shirts was nothing short of revolutionary. Picture her walking into a Hollywood event in a perfectly fitted tuxedo, her hair meticulously styled, and her makeup flawless. The image was striking and unforgettable, making a powerful statement about gender and fashion. She was one of the first women to popularize androgynous fashion in Hollywood. Her style wasn't about rejecting femininity, but about embracing a broader spectrum of identity. By wearing men's clothing, Dietrich played with societal expectations, blending masculinity and femininity in a way that was both provocative and liberating. She made it clear that clothing was an expression of self, not a strict adherence to gender norms. Dietrich's fascination with men's clothing went beyond the surface. She appreciated the craftsmanship, the structure, and the way these garments allowed her to move and present herself. Collecting these pieces became a hobby, a form of self-expression, and a way to assert her individuality. Imagine her private wardrobe, filled with an array of perfectly tailored suits, each piece carefully chosen and cherished. Her influence extended far beyond her personal collection. Dietrich's androgynous style inspired countless designers and fashion enthusiasts, paving the way for future generations to explore and embrace non-traditional fashion choices. She wasn't just a style icon. She was a pioneer who challenged the fashion industry's rigid boundaries. Peter Sellers' obsession against the color purple. Most people have typical fears like heights, snakes, or spiders, but Peter Sellers, he had a bizarre terror of the color purple. Now, Sellers' eccentricity wasn't the lovable, bumbling kind he often portrayed in his roles. It was far more chaotic and disturbing, making him a difficult person to be around. On film sets, Sellers was infamous for his explosive outbursts. Imagine him in a fit of rage, yelling at his wives, smashing dishes, and even brandishing a shotgun to vent his anger. His tantrums didn't stop there. He clashed with directors and producers, despite their higher status, and would often get lower-level staff fired if they crossed him. His erratic behavior was compounded by his vague racism and intense superstitions. One superstition in particular involved the famed director Vittorio De Sica. While they were working on After the Fox, Sellers saw De Sica berate a script girl for wearing purple. The director ominously declared that purple was the color of death. This statement profoundly impacted Sellers, who became convinced that the color purple could kill. From then on, Sellers' fear of purple dominated his actions. Any time he encountered the color, he'd fly into a panic, throwing tantrums and insisting it be removed. This irrational fear added yet another layer of unpredictability to an already volatile personality, making life around him a constant challenge. Charlie Chaplin's obsession with younger women. Charlie Chaplin, the legendary actor, filmmaker, and comedian, known for his iconic character, the Little Tramp, also had a much darker side to his personal life. Beyond the silver screen, Chaplin's relationships were the subject of much controversy, largely due to his well-known obsession with very young women. This fixation shaped his personal and professional life in ways that continue to spark debate. Chaplin's first marriage was to Mildred Harris in 1918, when he was 29 and she was just 16. Their relationship began when Harris was only 15, highlighting the significant age difference and Chaplin's preference for much younger partners. The marriage was short-lived, lasting only 2 years, but it set a precedent for Chaplin's future romantic endeavors. Following his divorce from Harris, Chaplin embarked on a series of relationships with teenage girls. His second marriage was to Lita Gray, who was 16 when they started their relationship and 18 when they married in 1924. Chaplin was 35 at the time. Their union was fraught with difficulties from the start. Gray's youth and inexperience clashed with Chaplin's controlling nature, leading to a tumultuous relationship that ended in a highly publicized and acrimonious divorce. The divorce proceedings revealed many sordid details about Chaplin's behavior, further cementing his controversial reputation. Despite the scandal, Chaplin continued to pursue young women. His third marriage was to Paulette Goddard, a rising star in Hollywood, who was 21 when they met, and Chaplin was 47. Though their marriage was kept relatively private and the age gap was not as stark as in his previous relationships, the pattern of significant age differences persisted. Chaplin's fourth and final marriage was to Una O'Neill, the daughter of playwright Eugene O'Neill. Una was just 18 when she married Chaplin, who was 54 at the time. This marriage, despite the age gap, proved to be the most stable and enduring of Chaplin's life. They remained together until Chaplin's death in 1977, and they had 8 children. Una's unwavering support and devotion seemed to bring Chaplin a semblance of the stability that had eluded him in his previous relationships. His preference for young women was not limited to his marriages. He was known to have numerous relationships with teenage girls throughout his life, often starting when the girls were still minors. This behavior, while not uncommon in the early 20th century, drew significant criticism and legal challenges. In one notable case, Chaplin faced a paternity suit from actress Joan Barry, who was 23 years younger than him. The case, which included allegations of coercion and manipulation, was widely covered by the media and further tarnished Chaplin's public image. The controversy surrounding Chaplin's relationships with young women has led to a complex legacy. On one hand, he is celebrated as a genius of early cinema, whose contributions to film and comedy are unparalleled. On the other hand, his personal life raises uncomfortable questions about the dynamics of power and exploitation. Chaplin's behavior reflects the broader societal attitudes of his time, where older men often pursued younger women, sometimes with dire consequences. Gloria Swanson's obsession with health and fasting. Gloria Swanson, one of Hollywood's most glamorous and enduring stars, was not only known for her striking beauty and acting prowess, but also for her intense dedication to health foods and fasting. Decades before the wellness industry became mainstream, Swanson was a pioneer in the realm of health and nutrition, turning her lifestyle into a fervent obsession that shaped her daily routines and public persona. Swanson's journey into the world of health foods and fasting began at a time when processed foods were becoming increasingly popular in America. Rejecting this trend, she delved into natural and organic eating habits, believing that what she consumed had a direct impact on her overall well-being and longevity. Her approach to diet was meticulous and uncompromising. She scrutinized every ingredient, ensuring that her meals were not only nutritious but also free from any artificial additives or preservatives. Her commitment to healthy foods extended beyond just eating organic produce. Swanson embraced a diet rich in raw vegetables, fruits, nuts, and seeds, long before such dietary choices became fashionable. She was particularly fond of juicing, often preparing fresh vegetable and fruit juices to maintain her energy and vitality. This dedication to a clean diet was not merely a fad for Swanson. It was a deeply ingrained lifestyle choice that she believed was essential for sustaining her health and beauty. In addition to her strict dietary habits, Swanson was a firm believer in the benefits of fasting. She would often embark on long fasts, abstaining from food for extended periods to cleanse her body and mind. These fasts were not just about physical health. Swanson saw them as a way to achieve mental clarity and spiritual renewal. Her fasting routines were rigorous, sometimes lasting several days, during which she would consume only water or freshly squeezed juices. This practice was unconventional and even controversial at the time, but Swanson was unwavering in her belief in its benefits. Swanson's obsession with health foods and fasting was also evident in her social interactions and public appearances. She often spoke about her dietary practices, sharing her knowledge and experiences with others. She became an advocate for healthy living, encouraging those around her to adopt similar habits. Her influence extended to her close circle of friends and colleagues in Hollywood, many of whom were inspired by her dedication and began to explore healthier lifestyles themselves. Her commitment to health was not without its challenges. Swanson faced skepticism and criticism from those who viewed her practices as extreme or unnecessary. However, she remained steadfast, confident in the knowledge that her choices were beneficial. Her dedication to health and wellness was a testament to her discipline and determination, qualities that also defined her illustrious career. Swanson's approach to health was holistic. She believed in the interconnectedness of physical, mental, and emotional well-being. This belief guided her lifestyle choices, from her diet and fasting routines to her emphasis on regular exercise and stress management. She practiced yoga and meditation, long before these practices became popular in the West, as part of her daily regimen to maintain balance and harmony in her life. Her obsession with health foods and fasting also influenced her work. Swanson often took on roles that reflected her personal beliefs, portraying characters who embodied strength, resilience, and a sense of well-being. Her off-screen persona, as a health-conscious and disciplined individual, became an integral part of her public image, distinguishing her from many of her contemporaries.
Without a doubt, Hollywood has its secrets. In the same vein, Hollywood stars have their own secret that they would rather have taken to the grave. However, some of these secrets found their way out and would leave even the most loyal of fans with their jaws open in pure shock and even terror. Some of these Hollywood stars had some twisted fetishes and pleasures that they enjoyed in the privacy of their own homes or secret places. Some of them will shock you, others will send shivers down your spine.
In the Golden Age era of Hollywood, there was less tolerance for affairs and illegitimate children. It could be the end of your career as an actor, and it's like putting a noose over your life socially. So imagine being born as an illegitimate child here. Some were terminated before they even got a chance to breathe. Others were condemned and forced to live in shame, but their stories would break your heart into a million pieces.
Things like that can only happen in a country like America.
Judy Lewis. Now, back in the day, Loretta Young was one of the biggest stars in Hollywood. Beautiful, talented, and very much in the public eye. But here's where things take a twist. Loretta had a secret affair with Clark Gable, who was also a massive Hollywood star, best known as Rhett Butler from Gone with the Wind. At the time, though, both of them were involved with other people. Clark was married, and Loretta had her image to protect. So when Loretta ended up pregnant, this was a huge problem, especially in an era where a public out-of-wedlock pregnancy could have destroyed her career. They had to keep the pregnancy a secret. It was already a scandal waiting to happen. So, to keep the scandal under wraps, Loretta did what a lot of actresses of that time did. She disappeared. She took a vacation from Hollywood, went away for months, and gave birth in secret in 1935. No paparazzi, no media frenzy. She had everything planned out to the last detail, even hiding the pregnancy from most of the people closest to her. It was the perfect plan. But here's where it gets interesting. When she eventually returned to Hollywood, she didn't just reveal that she had a baby. No, she made it seem like she had adopted this little girl, Judy, a year later. Imagine that. A mother adopting her own child and keeping it a secret from nearly everyone, including the child herself. That's the kind of secrecy that dominated the golden age of Hollywood. For most of Judy's childhood, she had no idea who her real parents were. She grew up believing that Loretta was just her adoptive mother. But before then, Lewis went through hell. After she was born, Loretta Young didn't bring her daughter home right away. Instead, Judy spent the first 19 months of her life in various hideaways and orphanages. Loretta was still trying to keep the whole situation under wraps. Eventually, she adopted Judy, which, as we know now, was just part of her plan to conceal the truth about Judy's parentage. When Judy was around 4 years old, Loretta married a radio producer named Tom Lewis. That's when Judy took his last name, becoming Judy Lewis. Loretta and Tom had 2 more kids together, 2 sons, Christopher and Peter. So now Judy's growing up in this family and she's finally happy and at peace, but there's one small problem. She looks a lot like Clark Gable, especially those famous ears of his that stuck out. It was a resemblance that was hard to ignore. But you would not believe what her mother, Loretta, did next. She actually had Judy undergo a painful surgery to pin her ears back up when she was just 7 years old. It was yet another attempt to hide the truth about who Judy's real father was. Can you imagine that? Going through surgery just to keep up appearances? Then, when Judy was about 15, her mother made another film with Clark Gable called Key to the City. During that time, Gable came over to visit Loretta's house, and that was the one and only time Judy ever met him. He asked her a few questions about her life, then kissed her on the forehead when he left. The kicker? Judy had no idea that Gable was her biological father. He was just this famous guy who stopped by for a brief visit. As Judy got older, she started to feel the weight of all the secrecy. She talked about how isolated and confused she felt growing up, like something was always off, but she couldn't quite put her finger on it. She didn't feel fully connected to her family, and it's no wonder why. She was living in this web of lies and half-truths that shaped her entire childhood. It must have been incredibly tough knowing something was wrong but not being able to understand what it was until much later in life. Judy finally learned the truth in the most heartbreaking way possible, as an adult. She found out that the woman who raised her was actually her biological mother, and her father was none other than Clark Gable, the biggest heartthrob of his time. Loretta kept this secret for so long, and when Judy finally confronted her, Loretta admitted it, but still refused to publicly acknowledge the truth. Can you imagine the pain Judy must have felt knowing her whole life had been a lie? She spent much of her adulthood grappling with feelings of abandonment and betrayal, constantly wondering why her mother couldn't just be honest with her. To make matters worse, Clark Gable never had any real involvement in Judy's life. He didn't acknowledge her, and he never played a fatherly role. This had to be tough for Judy, growing up in the shadow of 2 Hollywood legends but never fully knowing or being accepted by them. So, for Judy, the scandal haunted her throughout her life. She wrote a memoir about it later, expressing how much the secrecy and lies affected her. She carried that burden, always wondering why she wasn't publicly acknowledged and why her mother chose to keep such a vital part of her identity hidden. It's the kind of story that really makes you feel for the people who lived behind the glittering Hollywood curtain, where image was everything and human emotions were often sacrificed for the sake of stardom. Robertino Rossellini. It all started back in 1949. Ingrid Bergman was already one of the biggest stars in Hollywood, but she wasn't just about fame. She genuinely admired good filmmaking. 2 films by Italian director Roberto Rossellini had really caught her attention, and instead of just being content with watching from afar, Bergman decided to write him a letter. In this letter, she expressed how much she loved his work and casually suggested they collaborate on a film. And, well, let's just say things escalated from there. Rossellini was quick to cast Bergman in his next project, Stromboli, and this is where the sparks really started to fly. During the production of the film, Bergman and Rossellini began an affair. Now, keep in mind, Bergman was still married to Petter Lindstrom at the time, but the chemistry between her and Rossellini was undeniable, and soon enough, it turned into something much more serious. And as you might already know by now, back in the 1950s, this wasn't just gossip. It was a full-blown scandal. Hollywood had a very polished image to uphold, and having one of their biggest stars involved in an extramarital affair was a no-no. But soon enough, it got 10 times worse when Ingrid got pregnant as a result of her affair and eventually gave birth to a son named Robertino Rossellini in 1950. Now, as you can imagine, this was a huge deal, and not in a good way. This sent shockwaves through the entertainment industry. People were not only shocked that she had a child out of wedlock, but the affair itself felt like a betrayal to her public image. Bergman went from being one of the most beloved actresses in the world to a symbol of moral outrage almost overnight. She was condemned by Hollywood, criticized by the press, and even denounced on the floor of the U.S. Senate. Imagine that. A senator actually called her out as being an example of perverted morals. As for Robertino, he was born into the eye of the storm. His very existence was the center of this scandal, and that had to have some serious consequences on his life. First off, he had a strained relationship with Hollywood from the get-go. He wasn't just another kid. He was the product of one of the most controversial love affairs of the era. It's one thing to have famous parents, but to be born into a situation where the world views your birth as a scandal? That's a tough legacy to carry. Bergman's career took a huge hit, too. She was shunned by Hollywood for years, which meant that Robertino grew up in a time where his mother's name was often associated with disgrace, rather than the legendary actress she was. She moved to Italy to be with Rossellini, and while her career eventually bounced back, that period was marked by rejection and judgment, not just for her, but for her son, too. Imagine growing up knowing that your birth was the reason your mother was ostracized from an entire industry. That's a lot for a kid to carry. The damage to Robertino wasn't just public, it was personal. Having to grow up in the shadow of such a high-profile affair with parents who were constantly in the media for their turbulent relationship must have been emotionally taxing. His childhood was essentially defined by his parents' scandal, and it's hard to feel like you're living a normal life when the world already has its opinions about your family before you even know what's going on. So, in a way, Robertino's life was shaped, and possibly even damaged, by the choices his parents made and the public's harsh reaction to those choices. He was innocent in all of it, but he still had to deal with the fallout, and that's a burden no child should have to bear. The child that was never born. It's the 1940s, and Gary Cooper is the ultimate Hollywood heartthrob, right? And then you've got Patricia Neal, a talented actress who absolutely adores him. They start this passionate affair, and it's the kind of scandal that makes headlines everywhere. But here's the problem. Cooper was already married, which added a whole layer of drama to the situation. Now, Patricia is head over heels for him, but the reality of their secret relationship weighs heavily on her. Can you imagine being in love with someone who's not really available? It's like being trapped in a plot of a melodrama, but it's real life, and it's messy. Then things get even more intense. Patricia finds out she's pregnant, and it's like a roller coaster ride of emotions. She's excited about the possibility of a new life, but that happiness quickly turns into dread because Cooper, worried about the inevitable scandal, pressures her to terminate the pregnancy. Here's this woman, madly in love, and then faced with a heartbreaking decision that she never saw coming. It's gut-wrenching to think about how alone and devastated she must have felt during that time. After the affair fizzles out, Patricia picks herself up and continues to shine in Hollywood. She earns some serious accolades for her performances, which is great and all, but you can't shake the feeling that that chapter of her life lingers like a shadow. Even with all the success, she later reflects on how this experience haunted her. It's gut-wrenching to think that this child, innocent and unknowing, would never have the chance to laugh, cry, or grow up. There's no opportunity to experience the world, to find their place in it, or even to learn about their famous parents. They're just gone. And it's not because of anything they did, but because of the choices made by the adults around them. This situation not only left Patricia heartbroken, but also brought up feelings of loss and grief that would linger with her for years. It's like carrying an invisible scar that reminds you of what could have been. The world continued to turn, and she moved on with her life and career, but the shadow of that lost child loomed large. Nancy Sinatra. You know, growing up as Nancy Sinatra Jr. was no walk in the park. Imagine being the daughter of the legendary Frank Sinatra, but with the twist that you were born from an affair while he was still married to his first wife, Nancy Barbato. That little tidbit was like a shadow that followed her everywhere, making family life a complicated web of scandal and drama. From the moment she came into the world, there were whispers and gossip swirling around her. Being the child of an extramarital affair put her right in the crosshairs of public scrutiny. The media just wouldn't let up, painting her as part of this huge scandal that stained her father's reputation. Can you imagine that pressure? As a kid, she found herself living under the spotlight, with her father's larger-than-life persona overshadowing her own identity. She wasn't alone, though. She had two older siblings, Frank Jr. and Tina. But even with family around, Nancy often felt like the odd one out. Her relationship with her dad was complicated, too. The weight of his past choices hung heavily over their interactions. Sure, Frank Sinatra was charming and talented, but he was also a guy with a lot of baggage, and sometimes those ghosts seemed to get in the way of the love he had for his kids. As Nancy grew up, she slowly started to piece together the story of her birth and all the circumstances surrounding it. Finding out that she was the product of an affair was a real eye-opener. It wasn't just shocking, it was a heavy burden to carry. This realization changed how she saw family and belonging. While her siblings seemed to have a more straightforward relationship with their dad, Nancy struggled with feelings of alienation and confusion, and let's not even get started on how the media treated her. They constantly compared her to her dad, which only added to the stress. She wanted to carve out her own identity and pursue a music career, but the shadow of Frank Sinatra's fame was both a blessing and a curse. Some days, she felt like she could ride the coattails of his legacy, but other times it felt suffocating, like she could never escape the constant scrutiny that came with being his daughter. Her situation was even trickier because her existence was a painful reminder of Frank's infidelities. While she was trying to make her own way in the music industry, the emotional toll of being Frank Sinatra's daughter weighed heavily on her shoulders. She just wanted a narrative that wasn't tangled up in scandal, a story where she could be seen for who she was, not just as the child of her father's mistakes. As she navigated her career, Nancy faced the ongoing challenge of living with the choices her father made. Even with her successes, the complexities of her upbringing left her grappling with big questions about love, loyalty, and her own identity. Frank was a source of pride, no doubt, but the circumstances of her birth created an emotional landscape that was fraught with confusion and conflict. In the end, Nancy Sinatra Jr.'s journey really highlights the struggles of growing up in the shadow of a famous parent. Her story shows how family secrets can impact one's sense of self and the fight for identity in a world that often wants to define you by your lineage. Despite the weight of her father's legacy, she ultimately sought to forge her own path, trying to balance honoring her family history with establishing her own identity in a world that was always watching. Norman Chaplin. Charlie Chaplin, the legendary silent film star famous for his character the Tramp, had quite a roller coaster ride when it came to his personal life. One of the more scandalous parts of his story is his affair with actress Lita Grey. This whole situation not only stirred up a lot of drama in Hollywood, but also had a significant impact on their son, Norman Spencer Chaplin. So, here's how it went down. Charlie was working on the film The Kid when he got involved with Lita, who was just a teenager at the time. Their romance sparked a lot of gossip, especially since Charlie was already a big deal in Hollywood and the age gap made people raise their eyebrows. It was like a classic Hollywood scandal. While plenty of actors were indulging in affairs, Charlie's choices attracted an extra layer of scrutiny because of his fame. When Lita found out she was pregnant, things got even messier. They rushed to get married in 1924, but let's just say the fairy tale didn't last long. Right from the start, their relationship was rocky. Lita later claimed she felt pressured into the marriage, which obviously didn't help the situation. Can you imagine the stress? Then came their son, Norman, born on July 7, 1928. While everyone was excited to welcome the child of such a famous couple, the tension in the family was palpable. Being born into a scandal like this would be hard for any kid. On one hand, you have the thrill of being the child of a superstar, but on the other, you're surrounded by chaos and drama. As the years went on, things really fell apart. Charlie and Lita's marriage turned into a public battleground, with all the juicy details of their fights making headlines. Lita accused Charlie of neglecting his family in favor of his career, which added to the public drama. For Norman, that must have been tough. He was right in the middle of all this conflict, and the media attention was unrelenting. Growing up as Charlie Chaplin's son meant living in a spotlight that could be hard to bear. People were constantly comparing him to his famous father, and the scandal surrounding his parents was always lurking in the background. It's like Norman had to carry the weight of not just being Chaplin's kid, but also dealing with the fallout from a marriage that was anything but smooth. In the end, Norman Spencer Chaplin's story highlights the challenges of growing up in a world filled with fame and scandal. While his father was a beloved figure in film history, the chaotic nature of his family life created a complicated legacy for Norman. He had to navigate the complexities of identity and self-worth, all while trying to make sense of the drama that surrounded his family. It's a reminder that behind the glitz and glamour, there are real stories of struggle and resilience. Katie Wagner. You know, the story of Robert Wagner and his daughter Katie Wagner is quite the fascinating one. So, Robert Wagner, the charming actor known for his roles in classic films and hit TV shows, had a brief relationship with actress Marion Marshall, and from that romance came Katie. Now imagine being born into this whirlwind of Hollywood drama. Katie's birth came with its fair share of complications. Robert was a rising star, and Marion was no slouch either, but the relationship was short-lived. They weren't together for long, and soon after, Wagner went on to marry the stunning Natalie Wood, which added a whole new layer of complexity to Katie's life. Growing up, Katie found herself navigating this chaotic family landscape. It must have been tough, with her father's high-profile marriage to Natalie Wood, who was one of the biggest stars of the era. Katie was often caught in the crossfire of public attention. You can only imagine the pressure of living up to that legacy. Katie often felt like she was trying to carve out her own identity while living in the shadow of her father's fame and the incredible talent of her stepmother. Every time someone brought up her father, they would also mention Natalie, which had to be both a blessing and a curse. On one hand, it meant she had a famous father, but on the other, it meant she was constantly compared to two larger-than-life figures. It was like trying to find her own voice in a chorus of celebrity. And let's be honest, Hollywood can be a tough place to grow up, especially when you're the daughter of someone like Robert Wagner. It's not just about being the child of a famous actor. It's about dealing with the intricacies of family relationships that come with that fame. Katie's experience highlights the complexities many children of stars face. Even though Robert Wagner loved her and wanted the best for her, the dynamics of his relationships and the scrutiny from the media must have been challenging for her. It's a classic tale of trying to navigate a path when everyone else seems to have their eyes on your family drama, making it difficult to define who you are outside of that narrative. Ultimately, Katie Wagner's story is a reminder of the challenges that come with having a famous parent. It's a delicate dance of trying to embrace that legacy while also striving to stand out on her own terms. From extramarital affairs to pure undiluted lust on set, some of the stars of Hollywood's golden age just couldn't help their attraction. But following your passions has its own consequences, and for these stars, a love child they were not expecting was the result of their trysts. The response to having love children differed between these talented stars. As a matter of fact, some kept it so much a secret that you'd be shocked when you find out the truth. Michael Lindsay-Hogg. It is possible to hide an affair from the world, but the one thing that cannot be hidden is the striking resemblance between a child and his parents. Perhaps this was the reason why, no matter how much his mother denied it, Michael Lindsay-Hogg believed that his father was not the man he grew up with. He had a gut feeling that his father was an actor he had seen a couple of times. If you have ever come across the mind-blowing artistic works of Michael Lindsay-Hogg, you'll know that he is an embodiment of rare talent. Whether he is behind the scenes of films, theater, or music videos, he is the kind of director who stands out. But what if I told you that he probably got his creative abilities from his mother, Geraldine Fitzgerald, who was a talented old Hollywood actress? But that's not all. The man he suspected to be his father was none other than the legendary actor and director Orson Welles. So,
This leaves us with the question, why did Michael grow up believing that he was fathered by the famous actor? Well, let's go back to how it all started. In the 1930s, Michael's mother, Geraldine Fitzgerald, was a well-known actress. She was one of the actresses who captivated audiences at the time through her roles in films like Dark Victory and Poltergeist. Because she was famous, everyone knew she was married to Sir Edward Lindsay-Hogg. However, it was later rumored that she got into a brief affair with Orson Welles, who was married to Virginia Nicholson at the time. It was said that they were so attracted to each other that they moved their families to the same neighborhood so that they would be able to see each other often. This steamy affair allegedly led to the birth of Michael Lindsay-Hogg. Because the families lived close to each other, Michael grew up alongside his alleged half-sister, Christopher Wells Feeder. It will amaze you to know that Christopher once said that she always felt a sibling connection with Michael, but she could never explain why. When Michael began to suspect that Orson Welles was his biological father, he approached his mother, but she denied over and over again. Despite the fact that she denied the rumors, Michael saw through her and believed that she wasn't telling the truth. Although she took this secret to her grave, Michael was hell-bent on finding answers no matter how difficult it was. When he got older, he made up his mind to find the truth once and for all. He would later take a DNA test, and while some reports claimed that the test confirmed Olson was his father, other reports claimed that it was inconclusive. But perhaps the words of his mother's trusted friend, Gloria Vanderbilt, gave him the closure he needed. Gloria confirmed to Michael that Olson was indeed his biological father. One can only imagine the confusion and uncertainty young Michael nursed while growing up. It's good to know that he finally has some closure about the issue. Although his past was undoubtedly tumultuous and his parentage was undoubtedly complicated, Michael has grown to be a talented man. Michael Lindsay-Hogg, he is not like any other director you have seen before. You name it, he's done it. Film, TV, music videos, you name it. Remember the Beatles' rooftop concert in Let It Be? Yep, he captured that magic. And those iconic Beatles promo videos for Hey Jude and Revolution, his genius at work. But it's not just the Beatles. He's rocked with the Rolling Stones and jammed with Elton John, directing some seriously cool music videos. On the small screen, he's dipped his toes into classics like Brideshead Revisited and brought a touch of class to The Equalizer. And let's not forget his work in film, from the intriguingly titled Nasty Habits to the suspenseful The Sound of Murder. He's like the ultimate directorial all-rounder, spinning his magic across the entertainment universe for decades. This love child has grown to be a man who has fought to make his dreams come true. Judy Lewis. In an industry where everyone seems to know everyone's secret, the paternity of young Judy Lewis became a source of whispers and gossip. There was no denying that she looked like the then-famous actor Clark Gable, but she grew up believing that she was an adopted child. It all started when Gable and Loretta's parts crossed amidst the dazzling lights and opulent sets. Initially, they were just colleagues, but as time went on, they began to fall for each other. Clark Gable, the dashing king of Hollywood, and Loretta Young, the enchanting leading lady, could no longer hide how they felt about each other. Their on-screen chemistry was palpable, but it was behind closed doors where their passion truly ignited, away from the watchful eyes of studio executives and gossip columnists. Amidst the breathtaking landscapes of film sets, their affair flourished, defying the moral codes and societal norms of the time. Loretta, with her starry eyes and porcelain beauty, found herself swept away by Gable's charm. Considering her reputation, no one would have thought that Loretta Young would find herself entangled with Clark Gable. Loretta Young was widely regarded as a woman of strong moral character throughout her career in Hollywood. She was known for her grace, poise, and dedication to her craft. Young was often praised for her professionalism and integrity, both on and off the screen. She maintained a wholesome image and was perceived as a role model for many, particularly during the more conservative era of Hollywood. One can say she was a morally upright individual. Clark Gable, on the other hand, didn't have a spotless reputation. His reputation is a bit more complex. While he was undoubtedly one of the most charismatic and talented actors of his time, Gable was also known for his somewhat tumultuous personal life. He had multiple marriages and was rumored to have engaged in extramarital affairs. Despite this, Gable maintained a strong work ethic and was respected for his dedication to his craft. However, his personal life often overshadowed his professional achievements, leading to a more mixed perception of his morality compared to Loretta Young. Although they probably intended to keep their affair a secret forever, something happened that brought their secret love to light. This was the birth of their live child, Judy Lewis. Judy's existence remained hidden from the scrutinizing gaze of an industry built on illusions and perfection. Loretta, determined to protect her child from judgment, went to great lengths to conceal the truth, confiding only in the inner circles of Hollywood's elite. But as time went on, people began to notice. They could hide their affair, but the one thing they couldn't hide was the resemblance between Judy and her father, Clark Gable. But in order to keep their secret hidden, Loretta Young told her child that she was adopted. It was when Judy was 15 years old that she met her father for the first time. He came over to Loretta Young's house, but there was no discussion about whether or not Gable was her father. Judy grew up believing that she was indeed adopted and tried to ignore the rumors about her paternity. Yet, as fate would have it, secrets have a way of surfacing. The revelation of Judy Lewis as the love child of Clark Gable and Loretta Young rocked the very foundation of Hollywood glamour. It was said that Judy found out that the famous actor was indeed her father, and not just her mother's friend on her wedding day. Judy, who was 31 years old at that time, confronted her mother and demanded nothing but the truth on her wedding day. Her mother, filled with emotions and regret, finally revealed the truth to her daughter. Judy, now a young woman, unveiled the long-guarded secret. As expected, the revelation sparked a media frenzy, casting a shadow on the shining reputation of one of Hollywood's most iconic leading men. She would later write an autobiography called Uncommon Knowledge, confirming that she was indeed Clark Gable's child. Roberto Ingmar Rossellini. For several years, Ingrid Bergman made a name for herself as an iconic movie star. She started her career with German and Swedish films, and it wasn't long before Hollywood noticed her. But just when she transitioned into Hollywood and started making waves, she fell in love with a director and began a secret love affair. Ingrid Bergman was a phenomenal actress who was gracing screens for the most part of the late 1930s. Not only was she known for her mind-blowing performances, but filmmakers who worked with her testified that she was a highly talented actress who was willing to go above and beyond to bring her roles to life. Her career skyrocketed in the year 1936 when she played a lead role in the film Intermezzo. She would later appear in Intermezzo, a Love Story, which was her first acting role in the U.S. However, her life took an unexpected turn when she met a director called Roberto Rossellini in the mid-1940s. Following a letter she wrote him, he came to visit her in her home in the United States, and before she knew it, she began to have feelings for him. Interestingly, Ingrid was married to her first husband, Peter Lindstrom, at the time, and they had a daughter together. So, exploring the spark between her and the director would automatically be a taboo. What made it even worse was the fact that they were both married and had feelings for each other at a time when morals and family values were a big deal. It wasn't long before the pair decided to damn the consequences and fully explore the feelings they had for each other. Initially, they were able to hide their affair, but after a while, people began to notice. What made the whole thing even more shocking was that Ingrid had the reputation of a saint. She was one of the few actresses who didn't do cosmetic enhancements and was always praised for her naturalness. She only posed for decent pictures and made sure she didn't soil her reputation. When the news of her affair began circulating in the tabloids, people were beyond shocked. She was condemned by religious bodies, political bodies, and even people once called fans. She was no longer given roles because filmmakers were afraid that her presence in a film would lead to a ban. She was called an adulterous woman, and all kinds of mean things were said about her. But despite all the condemnation, Ingrid and Rossellini's affair only waxed stronger. The director would later divorce his wife for Ingrid, but Ingrid's attempts to leave her husband led to a messy legal battle. Her husband didn't let her go without putting up a fight. Soon enough, she got pregnant and gave birth to their first child in a hospital in Rome on the 2nd of February 1950. They were still unmarried at the time. Back in the day, it was like an abomination for a child to be born out of wedlock, so studios and movie stars did their best to hide love children, but Ingrid and Rossellini decided not to hide any longer. Sadly, this child, who was supposed to mark the beginning of a new chapter in their lives, actually led to an international uproar. It was said that U.S. Senator Edwin C. denounced the actress on the floor of the Senate and called her a disgrace to American womanhood. As if this was not enough, her home country also condemned her actions, highlighting that she disgraced her country. Just like that, this actress, who was once loved and admired, became hated all over the world. Despite all these, Ingrid loved her child, and shortly after, she got married to Roberto Rossellini. Their first son, who is now in his 70s, was said to have worked as an Italian real estate investor and a stockbroker when he was younger. Jack Nicholson. It is nearly impossible to be a fan of Hollywood movies and not come across at least one Jack Nicholson film. This is a cinematic legend whose contributions to film have left an indelible impact on audiences worldwide. There is no denying performances, memorable characters, and unparalleled talent have solidified his place in cinematic history. But what a lot of people may not know is that Jack Nicholson is also a love child. He grew up believing that his mother June was his sister, and that his grandmother Ethel May was his biological mother because of a difficult decision that his mother had to make when he was a baby. But how did this happen? What made Jack Nicholson believe that his mother was his sister? It all began in April 1937 when Jack Nicholson came into this world, but his beginnings were far from ordinary. His father, Donald Fursillo, was already married when he fell in love with a young girl and got her pregnant. Clearly, being involved with a girl who was way younger than him was forbidden, and making it public was only going to get him into trouble. But Donald Fursillo couldn't hide his feelings for this girl, and he wanted to step up and do the right thing, so he decided that he was going to marry her. He set the plan in motion and tied the knot with 17-year-old showgirl June "Dink" Nicholson. But it was only when she said, "I do," that she found out that this Italian-American showman, Donald Fursillo, was keeping a big secret. Immediately, their fresh union was entangled by controversy, taboos, secrets, and lies, because not only was June underage, but Donald already had a wife. Despite this, Don really wanted to take responsibility for his child, and he didn't want June to raise Jack alone. Although Donald's intentions seemed pure, June didn't buy the idea. As soon as she found out that he was already married, she started looking for other ways to ensure that her child was well taken care of. As a young girl who was trying to make ends meet, she knew for a fact that she wouldn't be able to cater to the needs of her child, so she decided to make a difficult decision, which was sending Jack to live with her own parents instead. Because he began living with his grandparents at an early age, Jack grew up believing that his grandparents, Ethel and John Nicholson, were his parents. No matter how tempting it was, his mother never told him the truth about his biological parents. She treated him like a brother, even on days when she was yearning to play the role of a mother. It wasn't until he was 37 years old in 1974 that he discovered the truth. Imagine finding out at that age that the people you thought were your parents were actually your grandparents. It must have been a shock, but the surprises in Jack's life didn't end there. He had quite a colorful romantic life himself. He was married to Sandra Knight in the 1960s, and they had a daughter named Jennifer. But Jack's relationships weren't always conventional. He had affairs, one of which resulted in a daughter named Honey Holman. Honey was born during his 17-year relationship with actress Angelica Houston. Imagine the complexities of growing up in such a situation. Jack also had another daughter named Lorraine from another affair during his relationship with Angelica. Her mother was Rebecca Broussard, who was actually an actress in one of Jack's films, The Two Jakes. Talk about drama both on and off the screen. And the surprises don't stop there. Actress Susan Anspach even claimed that Jack Nicholson might be the father of her son, Caleb Goddard. It seems like Jack's life was just as dramatic and intriguing as the movies he starred in. But despite his issues about his parentage, Jack Nicholson didn't allow himself to become a victim of his past. Over the years, he healed from whatever trauma the situation may have caused him and went on to create an amazing career. Today, Jack Nicholson is known as a renowned American actor, filmmaker, and producer who has left an indelible mark on the world of cinema. Nicholson's career spans several decades, and he is celebrated for his versatility, intensity, and iconic performances across a wide range of genres. He is perhaps best known for his captivating portrayals of complex and morally ambiguous characters. One of his most iconic roles came in the 1975 film One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, where he played the rebellious and charismatic Randall McMurphy, a patient in a mental institution. This performance earned Nicholson his first Academy Award for Best Actor, solidifying his status as one of the greatest actors of his generation. But he didn't stop there. He kept on pouring into his craft and creating in a mind-blowing way. Another landmark role for Nicholson was in Stanley Kubrick's 1980 horror classic, The Shining, where he delivered a chilling and unforgettable performance as Jack Torrance, a writer driven to madness while serving as the winter caretaker of the haunted Overlook Hotel. Throughout his illustrious career, Nicholson has showcased his remarkable range in films such as Chinatown, Terms of Endearment, Batman, As Good as It Gets, and About Schmidt, among many others. Isn't it amazing that Jack Nicholson became everything he ever dreamed of becoming and never allowed his past to dictate his future? From his unconventional parentage to his colorful romantic life, Jack's story is one that keeps people captivated. Who would have thought that behind that iconic smile lay such a fascinating tale? Allegra Houston. If you asked young Allegra Houston who her dad was, she would tell you that he was none other than the famous director, John Huston. Why? Because for as long as she could remember, he was the man she called Dad. But as she grew older, she became uncertain and began to wonder if Huston was really her father. Born on the 26th of August, 1964, Allegra was the product of an affair her mother Enrica had with John Julius Norwich, the Viscount of Norwich. However, Allegra grew up believing that she was the daughter of the famous film director John Huston. Growing up, Allegra had no doubt that John Huston was her biological father. She was raised in a world where she thought she was part of his family, with siblings who shared the same name. But her life took a surprising turn when she discovered the truth about her parentage. It wasn't until later in life that Allegra learned about her true biological father and the circumstances surrounding her birth. Her mother, Enrica, was married to John Huston for several years, but in the early 1960s, they had a major marital problem, and they became estranged. It was during this period that Enrica began an affair with John Norwich. Their affair would later lead to her getting pregnant and giving birth to Allegra. Tragically, her mother, Enrica, passed away in a car accident in 1969, and Allegra was only 4 years old at the time. Despite the loss, John Huston stepped in and raised Allegra as his own daughter, showing immense love and devotion. A lot of people were shocked that he raised someone else's child like his old child. Imagine the emotions Allegra must have felt when she discovered the truth. How did she react? How did she come to terms with having two fathers and two sets of siblings? These are questions that likely ran through her mind as she navigated this complex family dynamic. Allegra eventually found solace in writing her autobiography, Love Child, a memoir of family lost and found. In this memoir, she didn't hold back as she delved into her unique upbringing, exploring the complexities of her identity as both American and English, and the challenges she faced growing up with this secret. But Allegra has not allowed her past to define her. She is now a successful writer, carving her own path in the world of literature. Despite the challenges she faced, she has embraced her past while building a fulfilling future of her own. Jean Arthur's journey through Hollywood was unlike any other. With a career that spanned over 3 decades, she delivered performances that have since become benchmarks of the golden age of cinema. Yet, for someone so visible on the silver screen, Arthur was a figure of profound privacy, her off-screen life a stark contrast to the characters she so vivaciously brought to life. But who was Jean Arthur truly? Beyond the laughter and the acclaim, beyond the roles that made her a household name, there lay a woman of complexity, a soul who sought solace away from the cacophony of fame. Arthur's reluctance to embrace her celebrity status, her battles with anxiety, and her eventual retreat from Hollywood form a narrative as compelling as any of her films. This video seeks to peel back the layers of Jean Arthur's quiet radiance, to explore the dichotomy of a woman who was both a beacon of talent on screen and an enigma off it. From her early days in silent films to her unforgettable roles in classics directed by the likes of Frank Capra and George Stevens, we delve into the life of a woman who, despite her best efforts to remain out of the limelight, left an indelible mark on the industry and on the hearts of those who watched her. The rise of Jean Arthur. Jean Arthur's journey to becoming a beloved icon of Hollywood's golden age is a tale of resilience, talent, and an unmistakable voice that captivated audiences worldwide. Born Gladys Georgiana Green in 1900 in Plattsburgh, New York, Arthur's early life was marked by frequent moves, reflecting a restless spirit that would later define her career. Her entry into the world of acting was not a straightforward path. It was paved with the kind of determination and grit that characterized many of Hollywood's self-made stars. Arthur's foray into acting began in the early 1920s, a time when the film industry was undergoing significant transformations. The silent era was in full swing, and Hollywood was a burgeoning hub of creativity and innovation. Arthur's initial roles were small, often uncredited parts in silent films, where her distinctive presence began to draw attention. Despite the limitations of these early roles, Arthur's persistence paid off, leading to more substantial parts that showcased her range and depth as an actress. The transition from silent films to talkies in the late 1920s and early 1930s was a tumultuous period for many actors, whose careers were abruptly ended by the new demand for a different kind of on-screen presence. However, for Arthur, the advent of sound cinema provided an opportunity to leverage her most unique asset, her voice. Described as a mix of a squeak and a melodious lilt, Arthur's voice became her signature, setting her apart from her contemporaries and endearing her to audiences and critics alike. Arthur's breakthrough came with her role in The Whole Town's Talking, 1935, a performance that showcased her comedic timing and charm. However, it was her collaboration with director Frank Capra that catapulted her to stardom. Films like Mr. Deeds Goes to Town, 1936, and Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, 1939, not only solidified her status as a leading lady, but also highlighted her ability to bring depth and authenticity to her characters, traits that would define her career. Despite her success, Arthur's relationship with fame was complex. Known for her reclusive nature and discomfort with the Hollywood publicity machine, Arthur's off-screen life was shrouded in mystery, a stark contrast to the vivacious and approachable characters she portrayed. The craft of comedy. Jean Arthur's ascent to the zenith of Hollywood stardom was marked by her unparalleled mastery of the screwball comedy genre, a style of film that became immensely popular during the 1930s and 1940s. This genre, known for its fast-paced dialogue, complex plots, and blend of slapstick with a sophisticated wit, found its perfect muse in Arthur. Her performances in Mr. Deeds Goes to Town and The Lady Eve are emblematic of her ability to navigate the intricate dynamics of screwball comedy, showcasing her talent for combining wit, charm, and a palpable sense of vulnerability. Mr. Deeds Goes to Town, 1936, directed by Frank Capra, was a pivotal film in Arthur's career. Cast opposite Gary Cooper, Arthur played the role of Babe Bennett, a sharp-witted reporter who falls for Longfellow deeds. Cooper, a simple man who inherits a vast fortune. Arthur's portrayal of Bennett was a masterclass in the screwball heroine archetype, intelligent, independent, and morally complex. Her on-screen chemistry with Cooper was electric, and her performance earned critical acclaim, solidifying her status as one of the era's leading ladies in comedy. However, it was perhaps her role in The Lady Eve, 1941, directed by Preston Sturges, that fully showcased Arthur's comedic genius. Though Barbara Stanwyck played the lead in The Lady Eve, Arthur's roles in similar screwball comedies of the era, such as The More the Merrier, 1943, demonstrated her adeptness at this genre. Her ability to deliver rapid-fire dialogue with precision, coupled with her comedic timing and the inherent warmth she brought to her characters, made her performances stand out. Arthur's characters often challenged societal norms, embodying a modern woman's spirit who was both assertive and feminine. Arthur's unique appeal in the screwball comedy genre lay in her ability to blend humor with heart. Her characters were not mere caricatures, they were imbued with a depth and complexity that resonated with audiences. Arthur herself brought a sense of authenticity to these roles, drawing on her personal experiences and inner resilience. Off-screen, Arthur was known for her shyness and aversion to the Hollywood limelight, traits that contrasted sharply with the confident women she portrayed on screen. This juxtaposition between her private self and her public persona added layers to her performances, making her characters all the more compelling. Arthur's contribution to the screwball comedy genre extended beyond her individual performances. She helped define the archetype of the screwball heroine, a woman who was equal parts intellect, humor, and heart. This archetype would influence countless films and performances in the genre, leaving a legacy that endures in cinematic history. Jean Arthur's mastery of screwball comedy, highlighted in films like Mr. Deeds Goes to Town and through her body of work in the genre, showcases her as one of the definitive leading ladies of her era. Her ability to convey wit, charm, and vulnerability on screen not only endeared her to audiences, but also cemented her place in Hollywood's golden age as a symbol of comedic and dramatic excellence. Arthur and Capra, a cinematic partnership. The collaboration between Jean Arthur and Frank Capra is one of Hollywood's most celebrated director-actor partnerships, emblematic of a period when cinema was as much about entertainment as it was about conveying poignant social messages. This partnership flourished during the 1930s, a time of significant social and economic upheaval in the United States. Capra, with his deeply ingrained belief in the goodness of the common man and his critique of unchecked power, found in Arthur not just a talented actress, but a conduit for his themes of integrity, resilience, and social justice. Their collaboration produced several films, but none more significant than Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, 1939, a film that has come to define American ideals of democracy and individual agency. Arthur played Clarissa Saunders, a savvy and cynical secretary who helps the film's protagonist, Jefferson Smith, played by James Stewart, navigate the complexities of American politics. Arthur's performance, marked by a blend of skepticism and eventual inspiration, perfectly complemented Capra's vision of an America where ordinary individuals can make a difference. The success of Mr. Smith Goes to Washington was due in no small part to the synergy between Capra's direction and Arthur's performance. Capra's socially conscious storytelling, which often tackled themes of corruption, media manipulation, and the loss of innocence, found its ideal expression in Arthur's characters, who often embodied a blend of idealism and pragmatism. This dynamic allowed Capra's films to resonate on a deeply emotional level, with Arthur serving as the relatable, human element in his grand narratives. Arthur's collaboration with Capra was not limited to Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. Their partnership also produced Mr. Deeds Goes to Town, 1936, and You Can't Take It With You, 1938, films that similarly explored themes of simplicity, honesty, and the value of community. In each of these films, Arthur's performances were critical to grounding Capra's ideals in relatable human terms. Her ability to convey complex emotions with subtlety and depth provided the perfect foil to Capra's larger-than-life characters and situations. Beyond her work with Capra, Arthur's career was also marked by her collaboration with another legendary director, John Ford, in The Whole Town's Talking, 1935. While her partnership with Ford was not as extensive as with Capra, it further showcased her versatility as an actress and her ability to adapt to different directorial styles. Ford, known for his portrayal of American myths and landscapes, utilized Arthur's talent to explore themes of identity and redemption, adding another layer to her already diverse career. The Reluctant Star. Jean Arthur's luminous presence on the silver screen belied a deeply private nature, a paradox that defined her career and personal life. Despite her undeniable talent and the acclaim that came with it, Arthur was known for her shyness and aversion to the Hollywood limelight, a reluctance that stood in stark contrast to the bold, spirited characters she portrayed. This chapter delves into the complexities of Arthur's stardom, exploring how her reluctance to embrace fame contrasted sharply with her on-screen persona and professional success. Arthur's preference for privacy over public accolades was well known within the industry. Unlike many of her contemporaries, she eschewed the typical trappings of Hollywood fame, rarely appearing at public events or participating in the studio's publicity efforts beyond what was contractually required. Interviews with Arthur were scarce, and she was known to be uncomfortable with the fanfare and attention that came with her profession. This reticence extended to her personal life, which she guarded fiercely, leading to much speculation and mystery surrounding the actress. Despite her aversion to the spotlight, Arthur's talent could not be contained. On screen, she exuded a natural warmth and charisma, endearing her to audiences and making her one of the most beloved actresses of her time. Her ability to convey strength, vulnerability, and humor often simultaneously made her performances compelling and relatable. Arthur's work with directors like Frank Capra highlighted her unique appeal, showcasing her as the quintessential everywoman who embodied American ideals of integrity and resilience. The contrast between Arthur's public and private selves raises questions about the nature of stardom and the expectations placed on public figures. Arthur's career coincided with the golden age of Hollywood, a time when stars were expected to maintain a certain image and availability to their fans. Her reluctance to participate in this aspect of her profession was seen as unconventional, even problematic, by studio executives who relied on star power to promote their films. Yet, Arthur's insistence on maintaining her privacy can also be viewed as a form of resistance against the commodification of celebrity and an assertion of her autonomy. Arthur's shyness and preference for privacy did not diminish her professional dedication. Colleagues and directors often spoke of her commitment to her craft, her meticulous preparation for roles, and her ability to transform once the cameras were rolling. This professionalism, coupled with her natural talent, ensured that Arthur's career thrived despite her aversion to the spotlight. Pioneering feminine archetypes. In an era when women on screen were often relegated to secondary or stereotypical roles, Arthur's characters stood out for their strength, intelligence, and independence. Her portrayal of such roles contributed to evolving representations of women in cinema, offering audiences a glimpse of a more nuanced and empowered female identity. Arthur's characters were often women ahead of their time, navigating professional and personal challenges with a blend of resilience and grace. In Mr. Deeds Goes to Town, she plays a savvy reporter who, despite her initial cynicism, reveals a deep capacity for empathy and integrity. Similarly, in Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, Arthur portrays a seasoned political aide who becomes an invaluable ally to James Stewart's idealistic senator, showcasing her character's intelligence and political acumen. These roles, among others, positioned Arthur as an actress capable of conveying complex female experiences, breaking away from the damsel-in-distress archetype prevalent in many films of the era. Arthur's on-screen personas resonated with the emerging sensibilities of a society on the cusp of significant social change. The 1930s and 1940s were decades marked by economic turmoil, war, and the beginning of shifts in gender dynamics. Women were entering the workforce in unprecedented numbers, and their roles within the family and society at large were beginning to evolve. Arthur's characters reflected this shift, embodying the aspirations and challenges of a generation of women seeking greater autonomy and recognition. Moreover, Arthur's collaboration with directors like Frank Capra further amplified her impact on the portrayal of women in cinema. Capra's films, known for their social commentary and exploration of American ideals, provided Arthur with a platform to showcase her range as an actress and to bring to life characters that were both relatable and inspirational. Her performances in Capra's films not only entertained, but also provoked thought about the role of women in society, their capacity for leadership, and their right to pursue personal and professional fulfillment. Jean Arthur's contribution to cinema extends beyond her individual performances to include her influence on the portrayal of women on screen. By taking on roles that challenged traditional gender roles, Arthur paved the way for future generations of actresses. Her legacy is evident in the increasingly complex and diverse representations of women in film, a testament to her enduring impact on the industry. Arthur's reluctance to embrace the trappings of fame, coupled with her commitment to portraying strong, intelligent women, underscores the duality of her legacy. Off-screen, she was a private individual who shied away from the spotlight, yet on-screen, she represented a progressive vision of womanhood. This duality enriches Arthur's legacy, making her not just a celebrated actress of Hollywood's golden age, but also a pioneering figure in the evolution of women's representation in cinema. The transition to stage and television. Jean Arthur's transition from the silver screen to the stage and television marked a significant shift in her career, reflecting her desire to explore different facets of acting and to engage with new audiences. This chapter delves into the later part of Arthur's career, highlighting her notable stage performances and her role in the television series The Jean Arthur Show, underscoring her continued impact on the performing arts. After achieving considerable success in Hollywood, Arthur's career took a turn as she began to seek opportunities beyond film. Her move towards stage and television was driven by a combination of factors, including her well-documented discomfort with the Hollywood system and her desire for more challenging and diverse roles. Arthur's foray into theater was not just a departure from film, but a return to her roots, Before her Hollywood fame, she had experience in New York's theater scene, which had initially honed her acting skills. One of Arthur's most significant stage roles came in 1950, when she starred in the Broadway production of Peter Pan as Peter. Her performance was lauded for its energy and whimsy, capturing the eternal youthfulness of the character and showcasing Arthur's versatility as an actress. This role, among others, demonstrated Arthur's ability to captivate live audiences, just as she had film audiences, with her unique charm and talent. Arthur's transition to television was highlighted by The Jean Arthur Show in 1966, where she played a lawyer. The show was an attempt to capitalize on Arthur's enduring appeal, offering her a platform to reach a new generation of viewers. Despite the show's short run, it was a testament to Arthur's willingness to embrace new challenges and to adapt to the changing dynamics of the entertainment industry. Arthur's work in stage and television during the latter part of her career is indicative of her broader impact on the performing arts. She brought the same depth and nuance to her stage and television roles as she did to her film characters, challenging traditional gender roles and paving the way for future generations of actresses. Her characters often embodied strength, intelligence, and independence, contributing to evolving representations of women in cinema and beyond. Moreover, Arthur's transition highlights the fluidity between different mediums of acting, underscoring the idea that talent transcends the platform. Her ability to move between film, stage, and television with ease and success is a testament to her skill as an actress and her dedication to her craft. In examining the later part of Jean Arthur's career, we see a performer who was not content to rest on her laurels, but was driven by a passion for acting and a desire to explore the full range of her abilities. Her contributions to stage and television are an essential part of her legacy, showcasing her versatility and her continued relevance in the world of performing arts. The legacy of a reluctant star. Reflecting on Jean Arthur's enduring legacy in Hollywood requires an appreciation of her unique position within the pantheon of Golden Age cinema. Arthur's contributions to the film industry during her active years were profound, not only in terms of the memorable characters she brought to life, but also in how she navigated her career with a rare blend of integrity and talent. This chapter focuses on Arthur's impact on the film industry, her influence on contemporary actresses, and her lasting symbol as an exemplar of grace and professionalism in an industry often criticized for its excesses. Jean Arthur's legacy in Hollywood is anchored in her performances, which often broke the mold of traditional female roles. Her characters were strong, intelligent, and independent, embodying a modern woman who could stand on equal footing with her male counterparts. This was a significant departure from the more conventional portrayals of women in cinema at the time, making Arthur a forerunner in the evolution of female characters in Hollywood. Films like Mr. Smith Goes to Washington and The More the Merrier not only showcased her talent, but also her ability to portray women of substance and complexity. Arthur's influence extends beyond the roles she played. Her approach to her career and her life in Hollywood set her apart. Known for her aversion to the limelight and her dedication to her craft, Arthur chose roles that resonated with her personally and professionally, rather than those that would merely elevate her star status. This principled approach to acting, coupled with her natural talent, made her a role model for actresses of her time and for generations to come. Giovanni Jackson, Daddy's Girl,